Hello YouTube, this is the next modification on the Furibee F36, and today we're going to be putting on a little micro FPV camera. So I'm going to get the transmitter and the box out of the way here. Now you are going to need a couple of things to do this. You can either use double stick tape like 3M tape to tape these on, but I prefer to use little canopies that you can pick up that these fit in just perfect. Now this is the RJX 1380. And this is just a canopy that I picked up. Picked up a 3-pack of these different colors. So these come in different colors. And as a matter of fact, I got some blue, green, and clear over here. And another thing you're going to need is some extra screws to actually put this all on, because unless you have screws already, these Furybees only have 2 screws to hold the board on. You're going to need 2 other screws to hold the sides of the canopy on. And these are the M1.2 by 4 millimeter screws. They're very tiny. So you can pick up extra sets of screws for these, or you can pick up a pack of screws in multi-packs of the 1.2 by 4 or the 1.4 by 5s. And the 1.4 by 5s, I'll show you what you're going to need those for here in a little bit. So let's get started on this actual modification. So right now we got the camera, and it's got the cover on it, and I have already taken off the protective case and this plug here, which is a 1.2 pico blade or 1.25 pico blade. I'm going to leave the lens cap on here to protect this. So this camera fits inside here, snaps in pretty nice, but you do have the wire here, and there's a little bump right here. You're going to have to actually take out a small portion of this canopy just to make that fit in there straight. So we'll get that done here as well. So let's get started on this. First thing we need to do is take the cover off of the Furibee, and all you got to do is just pull your thumb over here. It's just held on by a little pin there. And take that off, and we're going to move this, take this antenna. The antenna's laid down in here. We're going to carefully bend this back up, straighten it out, because we're going to want to get this antenna up and out to get a better reception here with the transmitter. Okay, now the canopy fits on this way, and there's no holes already poked in here, so we're going to have to poke some holes there too. Now first thing I want to do is make sure of the camera where we're going to have to pull, cut out that little section there. So it's going to be on this side, and the quickest and easiest way, but you got to be super careful doing this, is to take your soldering iron and just kind of burn that off just a little bit. You're going to need about that much there. And that should give us the proper amount of space to get that in there and sit straight. See, we're still leaving a little bit of support there in the front. Most every one of these canopies I've used, the cameras snap in there pretty snug. Now you're going to want to have this in the canopy before we do any soldering here on the quad. So let's get this down in here again. Snap in. These things are hard to hold on to, I can tell you that. Okay, there we go. Got that snapped in nice. Now if you want to, you can actually bend your antenna down, but don't bend it from there. You got to bend it from up here, and I would be very careful doing this, because you could end up breaking the antenna. So it's your choice whether or not you want to bend it down, but I prefer to bend them down. That kind of helps protect the antenna a little bit. Okay, Now the other thing we need to do is get a hole for our receiver antenna, or for the board here on the Furibee, and we're going to put that hole right about here so it comes out there nice. Just real quick, just a quick touch. And you get a hole big enough for that antenna to fit through. We might have to clean up the back side a little bit. Yeah, that back side's looking pretty gnarly. And this video's taking longer than I wanted to, but you know, of course, when you're making videos, you always run into problems. All right, that should work. Okay. And there we go. Okay, so we got the antenna through there. And it's kind of a pain to wiggle in there, but you don't want it all the way down just yet. What we need to do next is to take these wires and prep them for this. Now, I just took the plug off of here, and instead of having to try to strip these wires again, I mean, you can do it if you want, but what I do is I just kind of clip off most of this little plug end. Probably clip it off like that and leave that little bit there. Clip off that little end. Now we're going to tin these, and these will tin up pretty good. Let's see if my soldering iron is going to cooperate with me, because I've had trouble getting this thing to take any solder lately. And there we got a flow there. We have those tinned up. Alright, so now what you need to do is make sure your polarity, you have your positive and negative wires, and on the Furybees, typically the positive side, when your plug goes in, is on this side when you're facing the back of the quad, on this side of the quad. So you got these two little spots right here. This is where your battery terminals come through. So your positives on this side, negatives on this side. We're going to try and get those soldered on here. And I'm leaving the wires long like this so that way you can mess with getting it all on here. It makes it a little easier. Let's see, get this wire turned a little bit. Okay, I'm back. Had a lot of problems there with the soldering iron, so I just pulled out my old trusty tried and true soldering iron that I've had for about 30 years almost. So here we go. I did forget to do one thing here. We're going to need to poke holes on the canopy here because there's no holes for the screws, and this will make it a lot easier to start getting it in there. So I'm going to take a needle and heat it up with a wire. You want to get these holes pretty much right where the screw is going to sit. Again, there we go. Heat up the needle and give it a little poke right there, and you don't want too big a hole because these are very, very small screws. And then you got to do the same thing on the front as well. I got the camera in there already, so I'm going to have to be a little careful and do it from the other side. You want to try and get it right about there. That should do okay. You want to get it as centered as possible and where the screw is going to sit. So you might want to look at the canopy when you set it down on here. Before that, I'd say get all those holes poked before you even pull your antenna up. Make sure everything is in there. That would be one of the first things you should probably do. But let's go ahead and get this soldered on now. Oh, you do have to remove this front screw, the very front screw on the board, and you're going to be reusing this screw. Okay, let's get this soldered. Since we're having so much trouble with that other soldering iron. Make sure these are good and ready to go. Okay, got a little bit of solder on the soldering iron here. And positive is on this side, so I can get a hold of this wire. Well, these things are hard to hold on to. Okay, get this at an angle I can get this on there. And touch that down. Give it a little tug to make sure. Then we got to do the negative side. And it seems to be poking up a little bit. It should clear the canopy. You want to try and get these laid down. There we go. Okay, so now we got those on. Now we got to make sure that we don't have any solder in between to, you know, make a connection there. So one of the tricks you can do is to, if you think there's some solder in there or see solder in there, you can quickly just kind of do this. I've done this for years and years, doing solder joints on small stuff just to separate it. But you do want to check the continuity and make sure that there's nothing in there that's going to make a connection. Now, another thing I'm going to show, some people don't know how to do this with a multimeter. This is just a cheap multimeter, and I'll turn it on. To do continuity when it does not have a continuity setting with the beeper, you would put it on the lowest ohms setting, and of course you have your common and your red plugged into the ohms. Now it shows 1 now, that's infinite. And when you touch these together, you have a reading of some kind of resistance. So you would take, it doesn't matter which side you do this on, check your connections here, and as long as that meter shows the 1, you're good to go. And you can double check again just to make sure, and poke it at a couple of different spots just to make sure there's nothing there, so it's good to go. There's no short across there, because if you have a short across there, you're going to end up frying your camera and your quad, and probably having a battery blow up since they're lipos. That is one horrible solder joint there. I'm not satisfied with that, but we're going to get this video done. I'll do that later. Okay, so now the reason I left the wire so long is so that way you could get this in here and not have to worry about yanking your wire. There we go. Okay, it's pretty snug on there, but I know it's not going to go anywhere. Okay, so you got to kind of hold your antenna, finagle this down, and once you get it down here, then you got to adjust things. Sorry I keep moving this around, but it's kind of hard to see what I'm doing at this angle. Alright, you got to get it kind of adjusted, get your antenna to bend around where it needs to be. It's where you can actually screw in one screw to start. And to get the front screw, we're going to have to take the lens cap off. We're going to start with the front screw. I do highly recommend a magnetic screwdriver for doing this. Or you can magnetize them by rubbing them on a good strong magnet. Okay, let's get that in there. And you don't want to tighten it down all the way just yet. Got to get these lined up, and they're going to mount on the side holes right here. Do another screw. I'm going to go that way. Let's get this right. And there we go. Got that one going. Just don't try to tighten it all the way down yet. Get the last screw. Okay, now you can tighten down your screws. Don't want to get them too tight because this is plastic. You still have access to your buttons on your camera. And now let's fire this up and see what we got. Get the goggles here. Plug them in. Just get the screen. And get a battery. Plug in the battery, give it a smoke test. And we got to find the channel it's on. And there it is. We now have video. So there it is. All right. So now the only thing left is, now that we know that works, is to take this antenna, just bend it around the side here. Just kind of finagle it there, and that antenna is now out of the way. Now, one thing I did with one of my other ones is I made a roll bar on here out of an old piece of parts tree from an older RC car that I have. It was nice and sturdy and flexible, so I actually bent it around, drilled holes for the pins on the sides, flattened it out, and drilled a hole there for the screw holes. Now the rubber band on here is just to kind of help hold the camera in. It doesn't really need to, but it does seem to help hold it straight. I just got a rubber band that's not tight, it's kind of loose on there, just enough to hold it is all it is. But that works out really well to help hold the camera in. I did have one of these canopies that the camera was a lot more loose, and this actually helped hold it in a little bit better. So that's pretty much it. I mean, now you got a little FPV quad. And one thing I do want to mention, if you're going to add the roll bar, if you make a roll bar or add a roll bar on attached to the bottom like this one is, you will need to drill out those holes or pin out those holes very, very small. I mean, you're not going to find drill bits that small, not likely. So you're probably better off using a needle, just kind of work it in there. Now, to put those on, you would use a M1.4 by 5 millimeter screw instead of the M1.2 by 4. They work out a little bit better. There's a little more bite to them, so with the roll bar, it holds on a little bit better. But you really want to make sure you get that straight down into that hole, because it's not drilled out there. So there you go, little FPV quad for probably, what did I spend on this? Less than $40 altogether, maybe 50 total. And that was with the 3 canopies. They're like $10, $8 depending on where you get them. The screw set, bunch of screws I picked up for like $7 for a bunch of screws. So I probably got maybe $40, $50 in here. Less than 40 if you just count like the single screws and you count the single canopy. So you got a nice little FPV quad just for that. And so that pretty much concludes all the modifications with the Furibee that I'm going to do, unless I can think of something else. So I appreciate you watching, and I hope you enjoy this, and we'll catch you on the next one.